name is Lisa, and I'd like to welcome you to Callers Chat, an online space that I've created for callers to chat about all things calling. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Toby Bennett to our stage. Now, Toby is best known as an English clog step dancer, but he has a background in ballet and contemporary dance as well as folk dance. He's recently been involved in Lewis Wood's Footwork project, and he's here today to talk to us about stepping in social dance. So without further ado, I'll pass over to Toby.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for this, the honour of being invited to do this. So why am I doing this talk? Because I'm not a caller. I do call occasionally, but I definitely wouldn't call myself a caller, although I have done in the past lots of social dance. Perhaps I should give you a bit more information about myself, because Lisa's asked me to do that. I first came to dance when I was at university through folk dance, initially through social dancing. This is back in the 1980s at Nottingham University. But I quickly got involved in Cotswold Morris, English clog, Appalachian clogging, West Coast swing, all sorts of things like that. Got really into dance, moved into jazz dance, moved into ballet, moved into contemporary dance. After a while, ended up training professionally as a dancer. So I'm a professional dancer and dance teacher. I danced professionally in Belgium for a while after training at Ballet Rumba School in ballet and contemporary dance. Then I ended up teaching dance in the university dance sector, again, contemporary dance and ballet mainly, but also working on, amongst other things, a big dance notation project with a very well-known dance notator called Anne Hutchinson Guest. But anyway, I'm now a clog dancer again, having left the university sector after too many years. So yeah, so that's basically a bit about me and where I'm coming from. Not a caller, but I have a great interest in steps and step dancing, but also steps in social dances. Why focus on steps? I think steps are fun, but I also think it's an integral part of our dance heritage. And if you look back, you know, the frequent references to different kinds of steps in our dances. And I think they're great fun to do, and they add an extra dimension to the dances. Where this all really started for me is I ran a conference at Cecil's House in 2019 called Stepping On. Trying to remember the subtitle, a conference on stepping in dance. So part of the focus was stepping in any kind in dance, mainly a focus on traditional dance. So there were various things from around the sort of mainly English-speaking world, on step dancing, on social dancing, and I see Chloe is here. Chloe gave a wonderful paper at that conference on the hornpipe step, which I really urge you to read because it's fascinating, and I particularly like the last sentence. Anne Day also gave a really interesting paper called Finding Our Footing, a discussion of the evidence for social dance step vernacular in these islands, so very much more earlier historical perspective. And in terms of social dance, Sean Goddard also gave a paper. So I can send you the link to download those proceedings, lots of other interesting things, but those three have interesting historical references. So as part of this conference, I thought we needed to organise something on the Saturday evening. It's a 2-day conference, and it should be step focused and dance focused. And so we ended up organising a step ceilidh party. I organised this with Kerry Fletcher, of course. She emceed the programme, the ceilidh, and we organised it together along with the fantastic band, which was Will Allen, Will Chamberlain, and Martin Clark, who were great. The focus of that was to include dances which have some kind of step focus. It could be a very simple step focus, or it could be quite a complex one. It didn't really matter, but the steps were and how you did them was important. It also has included a range of small, sort of more like floor spots than a big sort of monumental, Morris invasion in the middle, and different callers. So it wasn't always the same caller, although Kerry emceed it. So it had a very, I think, a nice non-hierarchical kind of feel to it, which I certainly quite enjoyed. And we had a lot of people, obviously, from the conference, so a lot of them fairly expert dancers, but also a lot of people from outside, because it was advertised as part of Social Shop House's programme. And it went very well, and I think people enjoyed it. And we are doing, I am doing another one at Sidmouth Folk Festival this summer with Jane Bird, who is here, and the same band as before. So that's really where my interest is currently in stepping and social dance. Little bit of history. First, a question. This came up between Lisa and I. She said, what shall I call it? Social step dancing or stepping in social dances? And my main answer to that would be stepping in social dances. But there is certainly a crossover to social step dancing. I wouldn't say there's a hard and fast break between the two. We're looking at different kinds of steps. We're looking at set steps that people might learn, the right step to do with the dance. We might, or at a particular time in the dance, but we might also have dances where it's much more freestyle, improvised stepping. I tend not to try and avoid the word improvise because it scares people off, but just doing your own thing kind of stepping. And that kind of more freestyle stepping is certainly something which was very common. Wherever you see footing it or foot it in an old dance description, it probably means people were doing anything they wanted. That kind of dance was often a dance in reel form, so in a hay. So it's not a reel necessarily in the sense that the music might not be a reel. Often it would be a hornpipe, could be a jig, I suppose. But you're doing the hay, there's weaving hay figures and stopping every now and then and stepping facing each other. The one everyone knows is Dorset four-hand reel, where we have the rant step, and I'm going to talk a bit more about the rant step later. But people obviously did a lot of different other steps. They did variations on rant steps, but they did other steps as well. Travelling steps are very important. What kind of step are you using for travelling step? I'm really interested in the polka step, but you've also got slip steps, all sorts of things. You've got setting and balancing steps, and we often think of these like in Scottish dances, so Dashing White Sergeant, you've got that setting, you've got them in a lot of English dances as well. The side-to-side movement, doing some kind of stepping. I think those are really interesting steps to be thinking about because they can be set or they can be improvised. And I think there's a lot to be said for giving people the opportunity to do their own steps. You've got speciality steps like heels and toes and things like that. And you've got things like the rant step, which are particularly associated with, as you know, I'm sure, teaching to the knowledgeable here, very much associated with the Northeast. So there's a wealth of history of different kinds of step dancing in these islands in social settings or stepping within social dances. There have been some revivals in the past of this. I don't know if anyone here remembers the campaign for Real Reels. It was Reading Step and Traditional Dancers that organised it, mainly Madeline Smith, I think, Amory Hume was leading it. They were trying to popularise both real form hay dances with stepping, but also dances with steps in. And I actually have a little clip of video I'm going to show you of a performance they did, one of the figures of the Lancers.
Yes. Now I can.
Here we go. So that's kind of thing they were doing. They did all sorts of other things as well. I want to talk about another revival, and this is a different kind of revival, more recent, and it's Simon and Joe Harmon's work with the the social dances coming out of the Southern Stepping, as well as the Southern Stepping itself. I've got a video. Do you want to say anything very quickly about that, rather than me saying it?
Was just our research into a collector called Alice Gillington threw up the fact that a lot of the social dancing in the New Forest and Hampshire had stepping in it, and her notes give brief descriptions that we worked on to try and put the stepping into these little dances.
And I'll just show you a little bit of, this one should work better, of one of their reconstructions. I really love this dance.
Thank you very much.
They did do some other dances, just one I know better and really like. So I want to talk very quickly about music. Music is really important. And if you're thinking about getting the steps, you need the music right. Because the steps often just won't work in the way they're intended if the music isn't right. So it's both the feel and rhythm of the music, but also the tempo. We were really lucky at Cecil Sharp House because the band could just play in any style you can imagine. I just want to show you another couple of little clips. These ones are all from the Step Ceilidh party in Cecil Sharp House. First one is Dorset Forehand Reel. And you'll see a lot of expert dancers there, but people doing all sorts of different steps there, which I think is quite nice. Really nice to see people doing all sorts of things. Of course, reels with stepping were done all over the country, up in the northwest, in the lakes, in the Lake District, Cumberland, Westmoreland. They were often taught. They were a bit more structured and formal, but they were often taught by dancing masters. And the three-hand reel, it was taught by the dancing masters up there, but it did mainly to children, but it kind of persisted into adults doing it. And it's interesting to think what the adults would have been doing, whether they would have doing it in such a structured way. Scottish reels obviously are very similar. I suspect those improvised stepped reels were pretty much all over England and Scotland. Wales and Ireland, I don't know. It's kind of an interesting question how much those there. I just don't have the knowledge. Westmoreland Square 8. So this is another version of the well-known Cumberland Square 8, slightly different choreography, but it's recorded back in the mid-20th century as with having a shuffle off that punctuates the dance. And I was quite interested in that, partly because as someone who specializes in Lakeland step dancing, the shuffle off is a key part of that. But the idea is that at social dances, everyone did some kind of shuffle off, which kind of punctuated the dance. I think that's really interesting, that shuffle off figure, because it's a kind of moment where the whole of all the dancers just come together and they're moving as one. And it really punctuates the dance, but really gives a sense of kind of togetherness, I think.